Recording in progress.
Okay. Yeah. So hello everyone. We'll be continuing with our science and tech current affairs. Okay. Now, this is the first topic, that is thalassemia. Okay. Now, see, in this topic, what we have to understand is about, first of all, this is a disease. This is a genetic blood disorder. Okay. As you can see here, what happens? The red blood cells that are formed are somewhat malformed. Okay. So they are not formed properly. That is the major issue. Now, let's see the details of it. So first is, what is thalassemia and why is it in news? Now, see this. So basically, if you look, so thalassemia is a inherited genetic blood disorder in which bone marrow is not able to make normal hemoglobin, leading to chronic or severe anemia. So basically what is happening here, hemoglobin is not being made normally. Now because of that, what happens, that you have red blood cells. Okay, so you have these red blood cells which are not proper. Okay, so these red blood cells are not properly aligned, and because of that, what happens, these red blood cells tends to break easily. So what will happen, these red blood cells will break down easily, and eventually, essentially, you will have lack of healthy red blood cells. This is the major issue that is there. Now why is it in news? So basically, scientists have developed a new kind of base editing technology that can target beta thalassemia mutations. We'll understand what are different mutations, thalassemia, everything. Okay, so something new with respect to base editing that they have done to treat a particular variety of thalassemia is what you need to remember. Now let's see next. So it says, first thing is how it works pathologically. So if you look, first thing is, if you look, this is genetic defect. So this is a kind of genetic defect. Now this is inherited from parents. Now first thing, so if this gets inherited to a child, now what happens? So what will happen, first thing is, normal hemoglobin is not formed properly. So normal hemoglobin won't be formed properly. Now what happens, the red blood cells are poorly filled with hemoglobin. Because that hemoglobin is not proper, so it will not fill in the RBCs properly. Then, so what will happen, if hemoglobin is not filled properly in RBCs become weak and they break early. Now, if they break early, what happens? Effective number of healthy RBCs will decrease. Correct? Effective number of healthy RBCs will decrease. Now, what do we call? What do we call? Very low amount or severe deficiency of RBCs. That is called anemia. So basically, blood hemoglobin levels fall. This only is called severe anemia. Now, how would you treat this? So main method of treating this would be regular blood transfusion needed every 2 to 4 weeks. So basically what you will do, now this person is not making hemoglobin or RBCs properly, so you will inject red blood cells from a donor into his body. Okay, now see this, one more important term, reduced production of globin chains, alpha or beta. So basically what hemoglobin generally looks like is, there is iron, if you know, it is caused by deficiency of iron, this that hemoglobin, if you remember. So there is iron, and there are two chains of alpha and beta globins. Globins means these are proteins. So basically there is iron in the middle and it has alpha globins here and beta globins here. 2 alpha, 2 beta. Now, if some issue is caused in this part, that is beta globins, it is called beta thalassemia. Okay, if it is caused in alpha, it will be called alpha thalassemia. As simple as that. Now next thing. So why are regular blood transfusions needed? Now see. So the thing is, the issue with this is, so see this, patient's own RBCs are weak and short-lived, correct? Because they are not properly formed. Now, donor RBCs survive only about 120 days. So donor RBCs work only for 120 days. After this, they will also disintegrate. Then what will happen? Again, you will need more and more RBCs. That is why you need to get blood transfusions every 2 to 4 weeks, because you cannot wait for 120 days for all the RBCs that were donated to you to end, to take the next dosage. That is not possible. Once you start getting reduced amount of healthy RBCs, again you will have to inject it. So within 2 to 4 weeks, again healthy RBCs or healthy blood has to be injected in you. This is the major method of treatment. Now using transfusion, that is transfusion of blood, they are able to survive for a long time. For many years also they have survived. Then see this, there is another term that becomes important here. This is called chelation therapy. So basically, apart from this, of course regular blood transfusion is needed. Because of this, what you have, you also need something called chelation therapy. Now what is this? So understand, now your body, the person, let's say I have thalassemia, so my body will be producing RBCs and hemoglobin, everything, correct? But that is malformed, so it is not able to properly perform its function, which is binding oxygen and all that. So it is not doing that properly. But even the malformed one has a iron in them, correct? Iron is still there, but there are some issues with respect to alpha or beta globins, correct? So here is the issue part, but iron is still there. Now if I am taking in more and more blood from outside, what will happen? Again I will get more iron. So essentially I will have a very large quantity of iron or excess of iron in my body, which needs to be removed. Otherwise I can have different kinds of issues with it, eventually even leading to organ failures. Okay, so that's why you have something called chelation therapy. Here repeated transfusion cause iron overload. You understood why? Body cannot naturally excrete excess iron, so naturally it cannot excrete. So chelation removes excess iron and prevents organ damage, as I told you. Okay, now next is, how can thalassemia be prevented? So there are 3 things, okay, fairly easy. First is about prevention. So this is the most effective way how you can prevent thalassemia altogether. As you understood, it is a inherited disease. So this is a autosomal recessive inheritance. Now understand what is autosomal recessive inheritance. Recessive inheritance means what? That a person can have thalassemia major only if he gets the gene or defected gene from both parent. If he gets it from both parent, then only he can become a thalassemia major or can suffer the effects of thalassemia. Otherwise he'll be asymptomatic. So basically, if there are 2 people, of course asymptomatic, if they are symptomatic, then you already know that they have thalassemia, so that is fine. But so this is, let's say, one asymptomatic thalassemia person. Let's say this is the mother and this is another, that is asymptomatic thalassemia father. Now what will happen? Basically they have 2 genes, so one of them will be active, one of them will be active or having thalassemia, other won't be having it. So let's mark their genes like this. So this has she has two pair, one part has it, one part does not have it. Similarly father also has like this. Now if they mate together, there is 25% chance that the child may get thalassemia from both of them, and then he will have thalassemia major. So best way for prevention will be, if some person is an asymptomatic thalassemia patient, then what they should do, they should test for the other person, that is the other person should be normal. Then what will happen, it will not be passed to their next generation, because it must come from both the parent, because this is a recessive disease, so it must come from both the parents. Now so what shall be done, carriers have one defective gene and are asymptomatic. Now if both parents are carriers, carrier means who are not showing symptoms, basically they are asymptomatic thalassemia, then each pregnancy has 25% risk. Carrier screening before marriage with genetic counseling prevents affected births. So before marriage only, while you are matching kundlis and all, rather you can match all these blood related diseases or hereditary diseases. Okay, then next, management. This is what we have to do lifelong for most of our thalassemia patients. First is of course regular blood transfusion and iron chelation therapy, as you learned. Now what is the cure? So cure is there for very limited cases, like for one you saw, for beta thalassemia they have shown some progress. Now here you need stem cell or bone marrow transplant, because bone marrow makes all this blood cells, all the blood cells are made in bone marrow, so entire bone marrow transplant or stem cell transplant. But of course this has high risk, high cost and very limited availability. Finding the donor, all that is very difficult, so that's why it is very limited right now. So most of the thalassemia patients for their survival are dependent on this, that is management. Understood? Then we come to National Blood Transfusion Bill to 2025. So it came in December. Okay, and so basically what this bill does, so right now in India, of course we have blood donation camps, this that blood needs to be, you should donate blood, everybody should donate blood, so that people from diseases, for example thalassemia, now that patients needs regular blood transfusion. So who will provide that blood? Most of us only, or normal people only, through their blood donation. So that's why we have come up with a bill called National Blood Transfusion Bill, because right now the infra of how blood transmission, blood works is very vague, okay, and it is not extremely clear. So that's why this bill has come. Now see, what is National Blood Transfusion Bill 2025? So this was introduced in Parliament recently. It seeks to establish a dedicated legal and institutional framework for blood transfusion services in India. Understood? Simple. It treats blood as a life-saving public resource requiring specialized regulation. Understood? Then, why was a separate National Blood Transfusion Bill needed? So basically right now what we were working on, so blood transfusion services are presently regulated under Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. Now Drugs and Cosmetic Acts also regulate a lot many other things. Mostly it is about drugs, but we are somehow managing using this norm only because we don't have a proper act for blood transfusions. Then, so this act is of course inadequate for regulating blood as a life-saving public resource. So there are of course regulatory gaps, and to curb all this, also to have uniform national standards across states, to have all these properties, we have come up with National Blood Transfusion Bill. Now, what are the key provisions? So first and most important key provision is establishment of National Blood Transfusion Authority. This is the authority that they have established. This is the main thing. Okay, this is now, if the bill is passed, this will be a statutory authority because it will be made from the bill directly. Now what are the things? Of course, uniform standards for collection, testing, processing across the country. Then registration and donation mandatory for blood centers. Otherwise you have blood donation camps. So basically this is a very weird structure. Then you have life-saving treatment for thalassemia and other blood disorders, correct? Then strict penalties for unsafe or uncompliant practices. This will make our blood cell services process across India well regulated. This is the whole aim of the bill. Also very guessable, just knowing this is a statutory body that is being made under the act is the most important thing. Why it is needed? Because right now it is being developed under or being governed under Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, which is not that proper for blood transfusions. Then next, then what is the significance of National Blood Transfusion Bill? So what is the significance? So basically this improves patient safety, of course, treats blood as a public resource, prevents unsafe practices, ensures equitable access to safe blood, strengthens emergency preparedness, aligns with global best practices. Very guessable. Nothing much. I have just given this so that when you revise it in slide, you just read it once. Otherwise, you can guess all of them, what such a bill would do. Then, next we come to malaria. Now, see, malaria was a lot in news, not just in the last week, but across the entire year. We'll understand all of them. Now, see, first we'll understand what has happened in the last week of December. So, Home Minister Amit Shah ji gave a statement that India records 97% drop in malaria cases. We will eliminate this disease soon from India. Now, sometimes when these statements are given by political authorities, they are rhetoric in nature, okay, or they are just claims that we will do this, we will do that. But the thing is, when he is making this claim, it is actually backed by proper data from ICMR report. So ICMR came up with a technical report on 25th of December, and this statement was given on 29th of December. Okay, now let's see. So why is malaria in news? So basically, according to ICMR data only, India has recorded 97% reduction in malaria cases, and the country will be free of the disease in short time. Now, this is said by Union Home Minister. Now, one caveat is there. This 97% decrease is actually when you consider it from independence. Okay, so that's why such a high number. 97% is from independence. Now, Indian Council of Medical Research released the Malaria Elimination Technical Report 2025. This is what they have come up with. Now, let's see. So something about malaria. So of course, malaria is a life-threatening disease. Malaria is caused by parasites called Plasmodium, which are carried by female Anopheles mosquito. Correct? These two things you must be knowing, that they are caused by Plasmodium, and what is the vector? Vector is female Anopheles mosquito. So this is the one that is carrying this Plasmodium, or this is actually the parasite that causes malaria. Now, malaria is of course a very huge issue in India as well as most of the African countries and all. Okay, now we have reduced a lot of malaria cases in the past few years. Now, so it says since 2010, 6 countries have been certified malaria free. See, Armenia, Maldives, Morocco, Kyrgyzstan, Sri Lanka and Turkmenistan. Of course, you don't need to remember the name. Now, India is also trying to get to the same status. Now, what does the recent report show? So, first of all, see what it shows. Malaria cases have gone down by 80 to 85% since 2015. Then, this is the good data. 80 to 85% decrease since 2015. Then, what else? Then, malaria deaths have decreased by 75 to 80%. Then 92% district report annual parasite incidence or API less than 1. API less than 1 means what? Annual parasite incidence. So basically how WHO divides it. So if API comes out to be 0, they say that they have started elimination of a particular disease. Now if API is less than 1, then this is called pre-elimination stage. This is elimination. Then in API 0 also they have two categories, that they have gotten API 0 just in last year, or for 3 years they have maintained API 0. If for 3 years they have maintained API 0, then it is said that it has been eradicated from that particular country. So India has reached, in 92% districts we have reached API less than 1. Now because we have reached API less than 1, that means India largely is in pre-elimination phase. Around 24 states and union territory in India are officially under pre-elimination stage. Okay, approximately 24 states. Then next, what factors drove this? So of course, very simple factors, mainly the government steps we are talking about here. So strengthened surveillance and early diagnosis, of course. Then wider free treatment coverage. Then targeted vector control. Now how we did targeted vector control? We did it using two methods. So basically this was mainly for endemic regions which had very high cases of malaria. So there we started distributing indoor residual spraying, started doing this, as well as we started distributing long lasting insecticidal nets. Now you know about nets, because mosquito nets, that you put across your bed. Now that is able to stop the mosquitoes, but it won't kill the mosquitoes. These insecticidal nets will also kill the mosquitoes. So these were distributed in those regions. Now better district level program monitoring was done. Then of course sustained political and administrative focus. Here you should know about something called national framework for malaria elimination. Okay, so basically this is what we came up with in 2015. So our aim is to get rid of malaria or end malaria by 2030. This is the aim. Another aim that we have under this is that we want to end domestic transmission of malaria by 2027. These are its two main targets. By 2030 we want to eliminate it completely. By 27 we want to end domestic transmission of it. Now why it is written domestic transmission? Because if you know, the major areas which are left or which still have large malaria cases in India is in the northeast. Why in the northeast? Because even though we have done our every possible step we have taken to curb malaria, it is surrounded by Bangladesh and Myanmar, which are again marshy territories. Okay, so they have conditions for good growth of mosquitoes and they are not taking such drastic steps. So of course they are coming to India from the other countries. So that is why our first target is to end the domestic transmission of it. Then by 2030 we will end malaria completely. Now we are not, will we reach this target by 2030 is difficult to tell, okay, but it is highly possible also, which is a very good news. Otherwise usually such things we never reach on time. Like TB elimination also we had, by 2022 we had to eliminate TB. Of course we have not done so. We are still one of the highest TB affected countries in the world. So here still we have progressed a lot. Then what are the key challenges? Now this is important to understand the key challenges that still remain. So see, First is malaria is now localized in specific pockets. Okay, so specific pockets have been identified where there is more incidences of malaria. Earlier it used to be more widespread across India. Now this is a emerging issue, very important. That's why earlier what you used to hear, that in a village malaria used to spread, or in rural areas we used to talk about malaria a lot. But the thing is, now you might be hearing about in Delhi there is spread of malaria every winters. Now Delhi is a proper city, correct? So it is a proper urban areas. Now why such thing is happening there, that you need to understand. So see, urban malaria is emerging now. Why? Because of container breeding, construction sites. So they have water filled up in those puds. These mosquitoes are developing. Now see. So next is fragmented urban healthcare delivery. Correct. Then invasive mosquito. This is again important. This was also in news on 27th. This was a news that invasive mosquito variety called Anopheles stephensi. This is found in some regions of Asia and Africa, but not in India. So this is also female Anopheles, but even a further variety, particular variety of it called stephensi. This is an invasive mosquito species. Now this has come to India. Okay, not just now, but it has grown rapidly in India. What it has, so it actually thrives in cities, breeding in man-made containers. So it has actually adapted to grow much better in man-made containers or in cities. Now this is the main cause why we may not be able to achieve it by achieve our target by 2030, because of this particular variety. This is an invasive species, so of course most probably it won't be eaten by other animals that usually eat mosquitoes also, because invasive species cause issues because of these reasons only. So this is an issue. Then cross-border transmission in Northeast, as I explained you. Then gaps in private sector reporting and capacity. So don't think about private sector, don't think about Fortis and Gangaram. We are talking about private small clinics, small hospitals. They don't have such proper reporting as well as proper capacity to deal with these patients. Understood? Now, so of course, conclusion, with strong surveillance system, political commitment and targeted urban strategies, India is well placed to achieve its malaria targets. Now this I have compiled, okay, this I have compiled of all the news that has been about malaria in 2025. Okay, now this I have compiled myself, and then Gemini has generated this picture. So this is very important. So see, in the early part of January, WHO came up with a report that moved India from high intensity group where there is high prevalence of malaria to global exemplar. Correct? So India, from being a much affected region from malaria, has now become something like a good global example. Why? Because we have reduced this drastically since 2015. As you saw, 80 to 85% is a very big number. Okay, within 9 years, within 10 years, 80 to 85% is a very big number. Then verified 80.5% cases reduction from 2015 to 2023, on track for NFME 2027 targets. I explained you the targets also, which is to end domestic transmission. Then after this, in July, so this was WHO report on malaria, and it gave specific reference to India as a global exemplar. Then in July 2020, we came up with Ad Falsi Vax. This we have also covered in a current affairs lecture before. So this Ad Falsi Vax is India's first indigenous vaccine that we have developed for malaria. This targets particular variety of Plasmodium falciparum, which cause many severe cases of malaria. Now, if you remember, I told you that it helps a person to not get infected by malaria, and through another process, it also blocks community spread. So it was fighting malaria on two places, that is One, the person won't be affected and the community spread is also stopped. Understood? Then it is stable at room temperature for 9+ months, so which is very good in a country, in a tropical country like India. So this was about the vaccine. Then on September 10th, commercialization and scale of this vaccine started being done. So tech transferred to Zydus Biological E. So all these companies started mass domestic and global production of it. No cold chain for rural delivery. It is not even needed. So low cost supply for NFME 2030. So this was done, started in September then. Urban challenge, invasive species, I told you, Anopheles stephensi, correct? Major issue in urban areas now. And last was national progress, as I told you. What finance minister announced, 122 districts achieved 0 cases, 92% have API less than 1, 24 states are in pre-elimination stage. So this is all about malaria. This diagram itself will be enough if you know the context. Otherwise, these small sentences won't make any sense to you. But if you have read them all, this diagram itself will be enough for you to cover malaria throughout the year 2025. Because it was so much in news in 2025, there is an expected question from malaria. Then we come to Bluebird Block 2 mission. So this is a very simple topic. Basically, if you know, this also we covered when this was first proposed in July, August. Then only we covered it. But let's see it again. So why this was in news? So in December 2025, ISRO launched Bluebird Block 2, approximately 6,100 kg. Its heaviest commercial payload using LVM-3. So launch vehicle Mark 3, if you know, this is the most important launch vehicle of ISRO right now, correct? This only will be used for our further missions. It may be Chandrayaan, it may be Mangalyaan, it may be Gaganyaan. All these, the further ones, will be by LMV3. So this is our very important launch vehicle. Now, what is Bluebird Block 2? So basically, this is commercial LEO satellite that is being sent to a height of only 520 kilometers, not much, by AST Space Mobile. Now, AST Space Mobile is an American company. This is an American company. So now what ISRO has done, ISRO has provided the launch vehicle to carry this heavy satellite and place it here. Okay, now this enables satellite assisted cellular connectivity with normal smartphones. We'll understand what it does. Works only with, we'll understand with the difference. So basically you understood that this is a very heavy satellite sent using LVM-3 of ISRO. The satellite actually belongs to AST Mobile of America. Okay, now we'll see the mechanism of it. Then, yeah, so basically see how it works. Yeah. Now we have also understood satellite based internet, correct? We have understood Starlink. Now we need to understand the difference between Starlink and Block 2 of Bluebird. This is very important that you understand the difference between the two. Otherwise, if you ask most people, you can ask anybody, any student, what you will find that they don't know the difference between the two. They think it's the same thing, just by a different company, and it is heavier, being sent by ISRO. Now, it is something very different from Starlink. Now understand how Starlink works. So basically, if you know, if this is my house, now in my house, at the top of it or nearby it, we will have some kind of antenna, correct? We will have antennas. Now these antennas will be connected to some router, and essentially when I am using my phone, I will be connected to this Wi-Fi or router of mine, and this router gets connected to the antennas. Now these antennas are very powerful, correct? So these antennas, powerful antennas, they send my signals they send my signals as well as receive the signals from satellites. Okay. Now, how is satellite connected to the internet? So basically, this satellite gets connected to ground stations, and then these ground stations are connected to different servers, for example Meta server or Google servers, and then it is relayed back to the satellite and satellite sends it back. This is how it works in satellite based internet, for example Starlink. Now what they are essentially doing is different. So what they are saying, that we will be using the phone signal directly, not this antenna, not this being connected to router, nothing. So basically I will have my phone, this is my phone, and from my phone only this satellite will get signals, and this satellite will relay these signals to any nearby mobile towers or ground stations. So basically mainly mobile towers. So then this will go to the mobile towers, and then of course mobile towers are connected to the internet, as you know. So this will be the system. Now here you don't need an antenna, you don't need Wi-Fi, nothing, just by your mobile. Now you must be thinking, I have also taught this in class, that of course your mobile phone is not strong enough to send proper signals to the satellite, because thousands of kilometers, this useless phone, how can it send this much signals to such a great distance? But the thing is, what they are doing, that's why this satellite is so big. Why? Because the satellite's receiver or antenna is very big, this bluebird satellite, and it is very sensitive also. So basically even the very small amount of signal that will be released from our phone and eventually reach there, some signals must reach, of course the signal will become weaker and weaker. So even that weak signal, when it reaches the satellite, that satellite will be able to understand it or analyze it, and then it will send this to the nearby mobile towers or some other mobile tower, then connected to the internet. So for this you don't need to be at a particular place, you're not dependent on antenna, essentially you are using your phone only. Now you must be thinking that what's the point of this? Okay, you can directly connect to the mobile tower. Okay, so the main use of it is actually in case of natural disaster, calamities, when everything is lost. Then let's say this whole place is somewhere secluded. Now it is divided, you are not able to connect to the mobile tower, but the satellite can get above you, and you can transfer whatever signal is there to the satellite, and then the satellite can connect you to whatever mobile tower it can find. So in those cases it will be useful. It is mainly an experimental stage right now, so they are experimenting with it. Understood? This is not a commonplace technology, this is still at experimentation stage, that can we do this right now. Of course the issue is that there is very huge latency, very long latency, and the amount of data that this phone is able to send there is still very small. So mainly they are using it for some small SMS, some voice calls, very basic things. Right now it is not being done at a large scale like the satellite based internet, where you can essentially use anything. Correct? Now once you get this, now it's theoretical. Yeah, so why is this experiment important? Because it demonstrates technical feasibility of satellite assisted cellular connectivity, correct? Useful for remote areas, oceans, correct? Oceans, then borders and disaster stations, disaster situations. Understood? Then for ISRO it proves heavy lift reliability of LVM-3. For us, why it is important? Because it is the heaviest satellite that is being carried by our launch vehicles. So that is why it is important to us. Now, even limited success will have high strategic and commercial value. Because if let's say all the infrastructure is destroyed around a particular place, then also using this satellite, they may get, their phones may get directly connected to the satellite. In that Starlink or anything, you need to have installed antennas or stations, ground stations, then only it will work. This will work with the normal phone, like your normal phone works. So important information you can still transfer. Eventually they will want to make technology better and better, so that in case of calamity we can instantly go to this method of communicating. Understood? Then what is LMV3? So this is ISRO's heaviest launch vehicle. Earlier it was called GSLV Mark 3, capacity of 8,000 kilometers kgs to LEO and 4,000 kgs to GTO. Correct? Geo transfer orbit. Now it has 3 stages. So it has S200 solid boosters, then L110 liquid cores and C25 cryogenic upper stage. So solid, liquid, cryogenic. Solid, liquid, cryogenic are the 3 stages. Then upgrades, so they are talking about that we will come up with C32 cryogenic stage and semi cryogenic engines, which will be able to carry higher payload, because eventually we will be using this for Gaganyaan also, for making Antariksh station also. That is also one of Bharatiya Antariksh station is also one of our aims. So for that we will have to carry a very heavy loads. So that's why they are preparing. Bootstrap ignition, all these new technologies are also being tested. Then human version of for Gaganyaan and Bharati Antariksh station. So there is another one, LMV3 human marked. Okay, so human rated LMV3 will be used for Gaganyaan mission, in which people will go. So basically it will be same launch vehicle, but we will make some modifications to it such that it can carry humans. Now humans require some different kinds of environment also, na? So that will be maintained there. Then how is it different from Starlink? So as you understood, Bluebird works with normal phones and does not require specialized user ground equipment. इसमें you require antennas, require specialized user terminals, dish or antennas, and dedicated ground gateway stations. Here you don't require it. Mobile towers also work. Both ultimately depend on earth-based network. So if anybody tells you that this makes the entire communication between your phone and satellite without requirement of any ground-based stations or ground-based networks, it's completely wrong. Because ultimately the servers of Google or Meta, everything, ultimately you will want to open youtube.com only, na? So youtube.com, how you will get to? There is no satellite that has servers of youtube.com. That is there on the ground only. So eventually it must come to ground, whatever be the technology, does not matter. Then last is super kilo nova. Now see, before this, so basically what has happened, a recent international study involving scientists from IIT Bombay and Indian Institute of Astrophysics reported the possible discovery of a super kilonova, a rare and powerful cosmic explosion. So they have seen, they are claiming, this is still a claim, not completely verified as of now, that we have witnessed one super kilonova. Now we'll understand what are these, but before that we need to understand a lot many things. So let's get started. Now see this. See, this is nebula. Nebula is just bundle of dust and gases. Now this nebula eventually form 2 kinds of sequences. Now if it is very high mass, wait, it is better to see this diagram. Yeah, this diagram is better. Now see this. So basically you have giant gas cloud or nebula. When it goes through some kind of gravitational collapse, then it will turn into a protostar, that is P star, and then eventually it will get to this star phase. Now see, so this is the birth. Now main sequence is what? If low and medium mass is there, if the mass is small or medium, then it will form stars like sun. Okay, now and stars like sun eventually can become red giant in the old age. Now this red giant eventually can get converted into planetary nebula, that is again planetary, as well as it will have many dust particles and gases. Eventually this can turn into white dwarf and eventually to black dwarf, and it stops here. Then black dwarfs can be converted back. Now So this is the pathway for small or medium stars. Small or medium stars go in this way. Mainly you need to know these terms. That's it. Nothing much. Then if if it is very high or massive star, for example Sirius, then they form red supergiant. Now this red supergiant goes through a process called supernova. Now in supernova what happens, it gets a large, it releases a lot of energy. Now it releases a lot of energy from around it, this red supergiant. Now if if it still has if it still has smaller mass, then it will turn into neutron star, or sometimes it will collapse under its own gravity and become black hole. Understood? So basically this is the diagram that we need to remember. From nebula you get to two kinds of stars. If it is small, it turns into red giant, eventually becoming white dwarf, or dwarf stars also sometimes they are called, eventually becoming black dwarf. Now here what happens, if it is a massive star, it becomes red supergiant, and then through a process of supernova it may become black hole or neutron star based on its size. If it is very large or very high in mass, then it will become black hole, otherwise it will be a neutron star. Understood? Now once you get this, now we will see the phenomena. So this was in news. Now first thing is, what is supernova? Now what is supernova? A supernova is a powerful explosion caused by the core collapse of a massive star at the end of its life. As you saw, this was old age. See, this was birth, this was main sequence, this was old age. Now old age के बाद क्या होगी? Death. Okay, so this is death and remnants. Remnants is whatever remains after that death. So either it will be death completely, or some remnants will be left. Remnants is whatever is bacha kucha. So supernova is a powerful explosion caused by core collapse in the core of these stars. So these stars also have a bundle of gases, dust, everything around it. It is talking about the core being collapsed, not those gases and all. So core collapse of a massive star. Okay, not a small star. Small stars may we form white dwarf. That was a different phenomena, not supernova. So collapse of a massive star at the end of its life. Then such explosion can result in formation of a neutron star, correct, one possibility, or a black hole, and release enormous amounts of energy and heavy elements into space, correct. So red supergiant goes under supernova, and if it is still very high in mass, it will form black hole. If it is little lesser in mass, then it will form neutron stars. It will release a lot of energy and heavy elements into the space, heavy radioactive elements into the space. Now let's see the other phenomena, that is kilonova. So first we'll understand supernova, then we'll understand kilonova, and then we'll see the other one. So kilonova is what? Now see, a kilonova occurs when two neutron stars merge. So you saw that two neutron stars, when they will merge, then this happens. So basically this is a neutron star. Now you have another neutron star. Now if they collide with each other and they merge, that occurs, that gives rise to something called kilonova. Now there is also something that if two neutron stars are colliding, if they become large enough, they can turn into a black hole, or they can become a even bigger neutron star. We don't know, like we have to decide this based on the size of them. So there is some critical mass. Okay, now once it crosses that critical mass, it can become a black hole. If it does not, even after both of them merge together, then they will remain a neutron star. Now so kilonova occurs when neutron stars merge. Now the merger produces neutron rich unstable heavy nuclei through R process nucleosynthesis. Now see what happens. So what happens when these two merge together? They release many different kinds of R nuclei or radioactive nuclei. So now what they do, for example, they will make gold 197. Now gold 197 is not stable at all. Okay, now you know gold as a very stable element, but that is the normal gold that is found in on earth. But gold also can have isotopes, or you can say gold isotope is basically gold and a lot of nuclei around it, a lot of nuclei around it. So this whole mass of many heavy elements and nuclei is going around, that is released by this kilonova. Now the radioactive decay of these nuclei releases optical and infrared radiations, which you see as an explosion. Then, while stable end products include gold, platinum, and neodymium. So basically, what is happening after, for example, this was AU197. So lot of nuclei are also around it. Eventually, it will release a lot of energy. After releasing energy, what will happen? It will become more stable and it will eventually form stable gold. Similarly, stable platinum is also formed. Now why this is important? Because this explains you how these almost inert heavy elements were formed. So kilonova tries to explain it. So you understood? Supernova is a phenomena which a red supergiant goes through and then it becomes a black hole or a neutron. Otherwise, it's fine. Every phenomena, even I won't know, even you don't need to know. The thing is just basic. These terms, what gets converted into what is a supernova, what is kilonova, what is super kilonova, very basic. Even when they have given questions from this part, they have given just simple matching. Though there are not many questions, 1-2 questions they have asked, it's just simple matching. What is this? What is this? That's it. That is what they have given. Okay, then why is super kilonova different from normal kilonova? Because it has an additional energy source from the initial supernova. Correct? Supernova is giving it the additional energy. This produces stronger gravitational waves. Correct? Because it is releasing higher energy, it will have stronger gravitational waves. Causes a more intense electromagnetic blast. Correct? Just the intensity is increased so much long. Then appears brighter and longer lasting than normal kilonova. Then this helps explain the origin of heavy elements and links stellar that neutron stars merges, gravitational waves and electromagnetic radiation in a single cosmic event. So basically all these phenomena are there that keeps happening in the universe. We also observe them many times, but observing them in a single event, that is in super kilonova, is something very new. Still we have not come to a perfect evidence of it. This is still claims backed by some data. Correct? Now we come to questions. Okay. Which one is wrong? Of course, treat blood as a life-saving public resource. Yes. Then establish a dedicated legal framework for blood transfusion services. Yes. Correct. Then continue regulation solely under the Drug and Cosmetic Acts. No, they are trying to make a different act. So again answer becomes 1 and 2. Then this is about Bluebird Block 2 satellite. First is enable satellite assisted cellular connectivity using normal smartphones. Yes, this is the main thing. Correct. Operates independently without any terrestrial telecom networks. Is this true? No. It will always require some ground stations. Now, Starlink have its own ground stations. Correct. That is used to get those signals. Here they are using the mobile or cellular network towers. Okay. So without terrestrial telecom networks is wrong. Then orbits in low Earth orbit 520 kilometers. This is correct. So answer becomes 1 and 3. Then last, a supernova is best described as. Supernova is what? An explosion caused by core collapse of a massive star. Is this supernova? Yes. Then a process that always results in a white dwarf. Third is a source of heavy element dispersal in the universe. Of course, this is wrong.